The smoke was already gone by the time Jonah Pruitt found her. Just a thin gray smear against the morning sky, fading the way smoke does when there is nothing left to burn. Arizona territory. Late spring, the year 1884. At the edge of a scorched dry wash 8 miles south of Dry Fork, a little Apache girl sat in the dirt alone, arms around her knees, and she did not make a single sound. That is where this story begins. With a child who had no voice left for crying, and a man who had forgotten what it felt like to matter to someone. What Jonah did not know is that the woman they both needed most was not dead. She was walking, and she was coming. Stay with this story till the end. What began as one act of mercy for a half-starved child would become the kind of family that can only be built from loss. The mother everyone swore had died in that raid was going to walk out of the desert alive, and the men who burned her village were going to come back to finish what they started. Watch till the end, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Jonah Pruitt had come to Dry Fork with a wife and a future. He left both in the cold ground by the February of '81. Her name was Clara. She was 24, with red-brown hair and a laugh that carried across the yard when the wind was right. The infant they named Thomas lived 11 days. The fever took them both in the same week, and when it was over, Jonah dug 2 graves on the eastern slope of his land and stacked stones over them so the coyotes would not disturb the rest. He was 31 years old and had no idea what to do with the rest of his life. So he did what a man does when grief has no bottom. He worked. He kept his 20 head of cattle watered through summer heat that cracked the clay earth into plates. He repaired fence line in autumn, chopped wood against winter, planted Clara's kitchen garden each spring, not because he was hungry, but because stopping felt like admitting she was truly gone. Most nights he ate alone at the table she had picked from the supply catalog. The house had 14 rooms. He used 4. The others stayed shuttered, furniture draped in muslin, holding the shape of a life that no longer lived inside them. 3 years of that. 3 years of quiet mornings and a horizon that never offered him anything new. He just kept moving, the way the desert keeps turning under the sun, not because it is going anywhere particular, but because stopping is not an option. Then one morning in May, riding the south fence line before the heat came up, Jonah smelled smoke. He followed it to the dry wash below the Sawtooth Ridge, a shallow ravine the Apaches sometimes used as a trail corridor. What he found there stopped him cold. The camp had been burned to nothing. 3 wickiups, their mesquite pole frames collapsed in ash. The cook fire stones were still warm. A clay water jug, a cradleboard frame charred at one end, a length of finely woven baskets scattered across the ground told the story without words. This had not been a battle. This had been a raid. Whoever did it came fast and hit hard and was gone before sunup. He was climbing back onto his horse when he heard it. Not a cry. More like a breath. The sound of something still alive pressing itself smaller against the earth. She was in the hollow beneath an undercut bank, half hidden by dried grass. 8 years old, maybe a little less. Her dress was torn at the shoulder and there was a cut above her left ear, dried dark and hard. She stared up at him with eyes that were absolutely clear, not vacant, not broken, watching him with the stillness of a creature that has decided it cannot run anymore and is simply waiting to see what happens next. Jonah crouched down. He kept his hands visible and did not reach for her. He spoke quietly, more to fill the silence than because he expected her to understand. He said he was not going to hurt her. He said she was safe. He did not know if those words meant anything, but the tone of a voice carries something that language cannot always explain. It took 20 minutes before she came out of that hollow. She did not take his hand. She stood up and looked at him, then at the burned camp, then back at him. He tied his horse to a mesquite, boiled some water, gave her jerked beef and hardtack, and waited while she ate. She ate like someone who had not had food in a day and a half. He brought her home that afternoon. He sent word to the army post at Camp Bowie and to the Indian agent's office at Wilcox. The agent was away. The duty sergeant at Bowie said there were no missing Apache children reported from any band in the region, the kind of answer a man gives when he is not interested in asking the question. So, the child stayed. He gave her the small bedroom off the kitchen. He left a candle burning low in the hall because she did not want the door shut. He did not press her for a name the first few days. He called her Little One because that was what came naturally. He learned her name the fourth morning. She came into the kitchen while he was making coffee, silent on her feet in a way that unnerved him the first few times, and she pointed to herself and said clearly, "Maska." He repeated it. She nodded once. He pointed to himself. "Jonah." She tried the syllables carefully. "Jonah." Then she tilted her head and went back to watching the coffee pot, as if that settled the matter. It was, he would think later, the first real conversation he had enjoyed in 3 years. The town of Dry Fork had opinions and shared them freely. Will Casper at the feed store said keeping an Apache girl on his property was asking for trouble. Casper's wife said the child ought to be sent to a missionary school in Globe where they could civilize her properly. Jonah listened to all of it and did none of it. He also heard the whispers about the raid. 3 white ranchers from over the Rincon side, led by a man named Decker who ran cattle on stolen land and had a grudge against Apache hunters crossing his grazing range, had hit the camp at dawn. Not looking for a fight, just pushing the band farther east. The army post logged it as a disturbance and filed it nowhere relevant. Jonah said nothing publicly, but he noted the name. Through May and into June, the ranch changed. Not dramatically, not all at once. The way light changes in a room when you open one shutter, you only notice it by comparison. Maska learned the word for horse before she learned the word for spoon. She followed Jonah to the barn every morning and watched him work with the focused attention of a child cataloging the world. When he held out a lead line to her one afternoon, she took it with steady hands and walked the gelding to water as naturally as if she had been doing it all her life. In return, she taught him things. She showed him the young agave shoots the mescalero harvested in early summer, scraping the hearts from the ground with a digging stick, roasting them in stone-lined pits into something sweet and dense that could keep a person going for days. She used the Spanish word when she had no English, mezcal. Jonah wrote it in the notebook he kept in his shirt pocket. He had been walking over food for 3 years without knowing it. She showed him how the mescalero read the sky for weather, the look of the clouds over the Chiricahua range that meant a dry lightning storm was coming fast and waterless, how to lay a hand flat on the earth and feel how deep the moisture went. He taught her English words. She taught him the mescalero names for things. By midsummer there was a vocabulary between them that was neither language entirely, but it was theirs, and it worked. Some evenings after supper she would hum very softly while he read, not quite a song, more the ghost of one. He recognized it eventually as a lullaby, the kind of repetitive melodic loop that passes between mothers and children in the dark. He did not ask her about it. He just let it fill the room, and the silence that had been so heavy in that house for 3 years began to ease. Then, on a Tuesday evening in early July, when the heat had finally broken and Jonah was sitting on the porch steps, watching the purple light move across the Dragoon Mountains, Maska came outside and stood very still beside him. She was staring south. He followed her gaze. Just the flat plain, the creosote scrub, heat shimmer still rising off rock. But something in her posture had changed. She was not afraid. She was listening to something he could not hear. She stepped off the porch into the yard and said one word he had not heard before. A name. A figure appeared at the edge of the scrub, a quarter-mile out, barely visible in the failing light, walking slowly because she had been walking for weeks. Jonah's hand went to the rifle leaning against the porch post, not in threat, just reflex. Maska ran. She crossed the yard in seconds and hit the woman with a force that would have knocked a smaller person down. The woman did not go down. She wrapped both arms around the child and went completely still, her face pressed into the girl's hair, not moving, not making a sound. Jonah stood on the porch steps and watched it happen, and felt the ground shift in some way he could not name. He brought them both inside. Her name was Itza. She had survived the raid by the thinnest possible margin. She had been away from camp before dawn, collecting sotol stalks from the ridge above the wash, when Decker's men came through below. She watched the fire from the rocks above, unable to reach it, unable to fight 3 armed men on horseback alone. She found no living person in the aftermath. She assumed the worst. She grieved for a week at a spring 3 days east, and then she began asking every trader and shepherd and Apache runner she met whether anyone had seen a child.
Weeks of that. Thin rumors and long distances. Until a Tohono O'odham man heading north told her a rancher south of Dry Fork was keeping an Apache girl. She had walked the last 40 miles without stopping to sleep. Jonah cooked what he had, salt pork, beans, the last of a cornbread, and set it in front of her and stepped back. She ate. She did not thank him in words. She watched him the way Maska had watched him from that hollow bank, waiting to see what kind of man this was before deciding anything. He understood that. He did not push it. In the morning he expected her to take Maska and leave. He had no right to expect anything else. Instead, when he came in from the early milking, Itza was at his cook stove. She had made something with the dried mescal hearts Maska had shown him how to collect, a thick sweet paste heated on the iron and set out on the tin plates beside the coffee. She said nothing about it. She put food on the table. That was all. He sat down and ate it and said nothing either. That was how it started. She stayed a day, then 2. On the 3rd day, she repaired a tear in the window canvas Jonah had been meaning to fix for a month. On the 4th, she was up before him, carrying water from the stock tank, moving through his ranch with the quiet economy of someone who had decided, for reasons she had not yet explained, that this place was worth keeping in order. They spoke little at first. Her English was functional but spare. His mescalero was 40 words, most of them names for plants. They talked through Maska, which gave the child a significance in the household she seemed to understand and accepted with great seriousness. Itza watched Jonah work his cattle one afternoon, and without comment picked up a rope and showed him a hobbling technique that held the animals more securely than his method, with half the effort. He said it was a good knot. She said she had grown up around horses. He nodded. That was the longest exchange they had in the first 2 weeks. But something was building beneath the silence. the way two people learn the shape of a shared space, who moves around whom at the cook stove, whose voice the child runs to first. It was not dramatic. It was the ordinary texture of people learning to exist near each other, and then, slowly, with something warmer than that. He heard them one evening singing together, Itza and Maska, both voices finding that same lullaby pattern by the fire, while Maska braided agave fiber. Two voices in the same melody in the same room. Something in that sound undid something in him he had not realized was still held rigid. He went out to check the stock and stood in the dark for a while. It was August when Decker's men came, 4 of them, midday, direct. Decker himself, a thick man with a sun-damaged face and a silver clasp on his gun belt, stopped at the gate and called for the rancher. Jonah came out alone. Decker said he had heard Jonah was harboring Apache runaways. Said people in the county took a dim view of that. Said he had ridden over as a courtesy to give Jonah the chance to hand them over quietly. Said the agent at Wilcox would want to account for the woman. Jonah said the agent at Wilcox had not answered the letter he sent 2 months ago about the burned camp. Decker said that was not Jonah's concern. Jonah said it was exactly his concern, since it happened 8 miles from his fence line. A silence settled between them. The youngest of Decker's men rested his hand near his holster. Jonah noticed it and stayed very still. Then, from the left side of the house, came the dry snap of a rifle hammer coming to full cock. Itza stood at the corner of the building with Jonah's Winchester, barrel level, eyes steady. She had heard enough of the conversation to understand its shape. She was not shaking. She looked at Decker the way a woman looks at something she has already decided is a problem she will resolve. Decker looked at her. His jaw moved. He looked back at Jonah. Jonah said quietly that the woman was on his land and was his guest, and that the next man to reach for a firearm was going to find out that the lady with the rifle was a better shot than she looked. He did not know that for certain. He said it anyway. Decker pulled his horse around. He said this was not finished. Jonah said he understood. They rode. When the dust settled, Jonah let out a long breath. He found Itza still at the corner of the house, rifle lowered, watching the empty trail south. Maska was pressed to the wall behind her. He walked over and said she had good timing. She handed him the rifle without looking at him and said in careful English that her daughter was on this land. She did not explain further. She went inside. He stood in the yard alone and looked at the horizon. Then he went to check the stock, because that is what you do when things have shifted in a way you need time to absorb. That night, Decker's men came back. 2 of them, after dark, with burning torches. The same tactic used at the wash camp. What they did not account for was that Jonah slept lightly these days, and that Itza slept lighter still. She heard them before the horses reached the yard. Jonah fired one warning shot from the barn loft that took the torch out of the first man's hand. The man dropped his horse and ran. The second, seeing the muzzle flash and hearing the hammer cycle again, made the sensible decision and followed. It was over in 2 minutes. In the morning, Jonah rode to Dry Fork and gave the county sheriff, a deliberate man named Holloway, Decker's name and a full account, the torches, the daylight visit, the burned Apache camp at the wash. Holloway rode out that afternoon. The charges were not severe by any honest measure of justice, but they were enough. Decker sold his grazing rights and left the county before the snow came. Jonah did not celebrate. He just came home. He found Maska in the kitchen practicing the days of the week.
which Itza was writing on a small slate in a hand neater than his own. They did not look up when he came in. Itza said supper was an hour off. He said that was fine and poured himself coffee and sat at the table, and something in the room settled. He thought about Clara. He thought about the graves on the eastern slope and the years he had spent going through the motions of a man who had decided nothing would reach him again. He looked at the small girl bent over her slate and the woman beside her tracing letters with quiet patience. He did not say anything that evening. He did not need to. A week later, on a Sunday morning when Maska was down at the creek gathering cattail rushes Itza used for weaving, he said something that surprised him by how easy it was to say. He said he did not know what came next. He said he had not known for 3 years and had gotten used to it, but that he had stopped wishing for silence, which was something he had not noticed until recently. Itza was drying a tin cup. She did not put it down. She said in the careful, deliberate English she used when something mattered, that she had walked 40 miles through the desert on a rumor of her daughter, that she had expected to take Maska and leave, that she had not expected the man she found here. She said the word carefully, expected, like she was still turning it over. He said he had not expected any of this either. He said he was glad of it. He said the house had been quiet for a long time, and quiet had become the thing he feared most without ever admitting it to himself. She set the cup on the shelf. She said, in Mescalero first and then in English, that Maska called him father now, when she thought no one was listening. He had not known that. He sat with it for a moment, then asked if that was all right with her. The morning light came through the kitchen window at the low angle it makes in late September, when the summer heat finally breaks. Outside, down at the creek, they could hear Maska singing to herself, that lullaby melody, cheerful and shapeless and alive. Itza said it was all right with her. They did not rush the rest of it. No grand declaration, no single moment of sweep and ceremony. Just a long autumn of working the same land, eating at the same table, learning each other the way honest things get learned, slowly, by doing. Jonah opened the shuttered rooms. Itza brought color into them, woven rush mats, small clay pots she shaped, and fired herself. The smell of roasting mescal filling corners where dusty quiet used to live. Maska stopped being wary. She became simply herself, a child who belonged somewhere. In November, with the first real cold settling over the Dragoon foothills, Jonah asked Itza to marry him. He did it at the porch rail after supper, plainly, without rehearsal. He said he knew it was not simple. He said the county would have opinions. He said none of that changed what he was asking. She looked at the mountains for a while. Then she said yes, not because she had no other choice, because she had other choices, and this was the one she wanted. Maska, who had been listening from just inside the door in a way she almost certainly believed was secret, immediately fell over the threshold and onto the porch, which broke the solemnity of the moment completely. They both laughed. Jonah could not remember the last time he had laughed that way. The wedding was small. The preacher in Dry Fork had the good sense not to make it complicated. They said what they meant, signed what needed signing, and walked home in the late afternoon light with Maska between them, holding both their hands. Nobody had planned that last part, but it turned out to be the truest piece of the whole day. The graves on the eastern slope were still there, and Jonah visited them still. Itza had her own losses, her band scattered, her husband gone, weeks when she had believed her daughter was gone too. Grief does not cancel grief. It just eventually sits beside something else, and that is about the best you can ask. Some evenings, after Maska had gone to bed and the fire had settled to coals, Jonah and Itza sat on the porch steps and listened to the desert. There is a sound the high desert makes after dark. Insects, a coyote far off, the tick of cooling stone. That is easy to mistake for silence unless you are paying attention. Itza said once, watching the stars, that her grandmother had told her the desert only speaks to people who have learned to stop being afraid of it. Jonah thought about that for a while. He said he was still learning. She said that was all anyone could do. He reached out and took her hand on the porch steps, in the dark, with the whole empty Arizona sky above them. She did not pull away. They sat like that for a long time, not talking, and the night moved around them the way nights do, slow, full of small sounds, more alive than it looks. What began as a mercy, one tired man crawling into a dry wash after a child who had no voice left to cry with, had become something three people built from the rubble of other lives. It was not the life Jonah had planned. It was not the life Itza had imagined when she was young, and the future seemed uncomplicated. It was not a life that Dry Fork, Arizona territory, in the spring of 1884, would have thought possible. But it was theirs. Sometimes courage looks like a gunslinger in the street. Sometimes it looks like a woman walking 40 miles through desert on a rumor, and a man who kept the door open when everyone around him said to close it. That is what changed everything. Not the strength of either of them alone. Both of them together, deciding that what they had built was worth protecting and holding on to it.